Hi everyone, welcome to the Coding Channel. Today is the 36th episode of our Java programming tutorial series. And in this episode, we are going to talk about how to create a JButton with the ActionListener Interface. Listen more when we come back. Here's a sample run of our source code for this episode, and basically we will be talking about buttons and how to register buttons for event handling. So when I'm going to hover on the button, on the on button, as you can see, the image changes to a smiley, and when I click this, so the frame width also changes, and then the buttons have colors also, and at the same time a background color of our frame. And then when we click the off button, it will go back to its original width and height. Okay, so if you're interested about this, let's get started. If I'm going to run this program, because I've typed in some of the basic codes already. So inside of our main method, I've just put here the method call of the constructor method, because I'm planning to put all the initialization of our GUI components inside of the constructor method. And if you haven't uh, heard yet about constructors, I suggest that you watch our previous episode, because we've already started, the introduction, a couple of episodes already. Okay, so in here, I just used the JFRAME as the superclass of our subclass button, so that we make it possible by using extends a keyword. Okay, so that I can use directly all the methods of JFrame. Okay, which is in this case I've used the set title. If you want to put some text on the title bar, so that's possible by using set title. So by the way, these are again methods of a JFrame class. So that's the advantage of um, uh, having a super class JFrame in our class. Okay, and then set size. So we have the default width and height, and then set visible true, because by default the frame is hidden. So, and also we put the set default close operation method with a JFrame that exit on close, so that every time we click the close button of our frame, so it will exit successfully. Okay, so that's basically um, the code that I've already typed in here. Okay, so now we will start creating buttons. So how are we going to create buttons? How is it possible in Java? Okay, so to have a button, for example, we have an on and off button. So we will start from that. So if it's an individual button, that is possible by using JButton class. And then, for example, we have OK button. That's the name of our object. So what I'm doing now is that I am instantiating an object, or I'm creating a new object of a JButton class, and I call it OK button. So it's equal to new J button, and then you can put here the OK text. Okay, so that's the first thing that we're going to do, and then I just have to copy this one and also create another for the off button, for example, off button, and then this time I just have to put off. Okay, so after the instantiation, so we are going now to um, arrange this component, or add this component in the content pane of the JFrame. I've explained in our previous episode that every time we use a JFrame, there are a lot of what do you call this, layers above our frame. So we have the glass pane and then the content pane. So in the content pane area, where we add the GUI components. When I say GUI components, again, these are labels, text fields, buttons. So for this episode. Okay, now what are we going to do now is I will be using a container class. Okay, first, sure, sorry, container C is equal to get content pane. I usually do this so that every time I use the get content pane to add GUI components, I will be just using the C object name. Okay, and then the next step is to um, specify the layout manager. Okay, there are a lot of layout managers, even as if you don't want to use the existing or built-in layout managers of Java, you can actually do that. But I will tackle that in our next episode. So for now, I will be using the FlowLayout a built-in layout manager in Java. Okay, so it's actually one of the basic layout managers available. Okay, so I'll be to define the layout manager, we will use a setLayout method, and then you just put a new flow layout there, and then just have to put semicolon. Okay, so that's it. So again, take note that the container, so these are class within java.awt. Okay, and the flow layout also is under the java.awt package. Okay, so don't forget to import. So next, after we have set our layout, so let's try now to add the buttons. So using a C dot add and then OK button. Okay. So this is actually the importance of having this line, because instead of a C, if we haven't declare C, for example, or if we haven't assigned the get content pane method to C, so what we're gonna do is we will be using the get content pane instead of C. Okay, as simple as that. So C dot add and then this time off button. If we're going to run this, let's try to display where are we now. Okay, so we have this OK and off button. So the next step is to put some icons. Okay, so let's try to put some icons. So that is possible by using OK button that set icon with an argument new image icon. So let me check my available icons here. So I have copy and paste the icons in my project folder here. So for instance, I will be using the wink.png. So make sure that you've pasted there. So we have wink.png. Then put that inside of the double quote. So that's it. And another for the off button. So we have off button, that's set icon and new image icon. Again, you need to import the image icon within the javax.swing package. That's it. So let's try again to run. So we now have the OK and off button. Okay. So next is we try to change the font of our text here in a button. That is again possible by using, for example, we specify OK button. I'm sorry. That set font, and then new font. There are 3 arguments there. So for example, we have Tahoma as the font, and then the font style. So we have font that bold, and for example, the size is 20. So we'll do the same thing also in off button. So we have off button that set font, and then let me run again. So after that statements, we now have the OK and off button. But as you can see in our final output, okay, there is a what? Um, it changes to another icon, which is the smiley icon every time we put the mouse over this button, or every time we hover on this button. Okay, so that's the next step that we are going to uh, try to do. So that is possible by using OK button dot set rollover icon. Okay, using method rollover icon, and then we will put here a new image icon. So this is the default, the wink.png. So let me check the available here. So we have a smile.png, for example. So we will use the smile.png. Okay, and this is for the OK and off button. Okay, so that's the command to have the rollover icon. If you're going to run again, so we have now, so the OK and off. But if you're going to click, nothing will happen. Okay, so it's because the next step is to register this for event handling. But before that, let me also show you how to create this other buttons. So we have 4, 8, 12, 16 more buttons. Okay, we can actually create buttons by using this type of syntax. But since the text is almost the same from 0 to 9, for example, so the best solution here is to create an array of buttons. So let's say, for example, we will name it as buttons is equal to new JButton, and then, for example, we have 10 elements, okay, from 0 to 9, so that's the total is 10. And then after that, we will add those buttons in our container. Okay, but before adding, make sure that we create first the buttons, because we only instantiate the buttons of 10 elements here. Okay, so since we are talking of array of buttons, so we will be using a for loop here. So for int index is equal to 0, index less than buttons dot length. So we have buttons dot length, and then index, for example, plus plus. So to create a buttons with labels on it, so we will just have to use buttons index. So meaning the first button, buttons index 0 is equal to a new JButton, and then we will use the variable index. Okay, or then we just have to put some text here, empty text, because the argument of button is a string. So to temporarily convert the index, which is an integer, to string, so we will use the empty string there, then the string concatenation operator, and then a semicolon. And by default, when we run the program, the buttons are disabled. So how are we going to do that in Java? So we will just have to specify buttons index dot set enabled. So this is the new button, set enabled false. Okay, so that's it. So what we did now, we have created 10 buttons, and then we instantiate a buttons with labels from 0 to 9, and then we set it to false. Let's enable false, and then it's about time to add those buttons in our container. So instead of having button sub 0, that I mean c dot add and then button sub 0, c dot add button sub 1. So, okay, so since we are already in the for loop, so we can just specify index buttons sub index. So we will just have to put this one c dot add, sorry, inside of our container, something like that. So c dot add button sub 0, sub 1, sub 2, or sub 3, for example. So let's try to run. We have sorry, we have now this one. Okay, so 0, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, and up to 9. So that's it. But with the flow layout, so the order of adding it to the container is very important. So I guess it could be better if we put this before adding the OK and off button. So we will just put it here. Okay, so let's try. Observe the difference. So if we're going to run again, so we have now the buttons on top, and then we have the OK and off button down here. Okay, so next, there are other buttons that we need. Okay, what are these buttons? We have the dot equals 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. Okay, so we have another buttons. So JButton, for example, buttons 2 is equal to new JButton, sorry. And then this time we have a 6, a total of 6. Okay, and then we will create a string array. For example, so we call it button labels. Button labels, for example, is equal to, so these are now the initializer list. So that equal sign, the division operator, multiplication, addition, and subtraction. Okay, so after that, we will also have another for loop. Let me just copy this one. You can just put here, and then, sorry. So we will also have, we will create that one, buttons index. So in this case, we have buttons 2 index is equal equal to new JButton. So we will be using now this one, the button labels. So we have a button labels, and then index, so that we mean that button labels have 0, 1, 2, 3, 4, and 5. Okay, and then this one we will change to buttons to that length, so that the value is 6. So buttons 2, okay, that's correct. A J button, sorry, buttons, and then also we will set that to disable first. So using setEnabled false, buttons 2, and then we will also add that to the container. Okay, so see that add buttons 2 and then index. Let's try again. Let's run. Okay, so that's simple as this. So we have 0, 2, 9, and then we have now the dot, and then the OK and button. So we all okay. So the next step is now to add or to register these two buttons for event handling. So by the way, so initially when we run this program, the off button is should be disabled. So how are we going to do that? So we can just put it here. So off button that set enabled false. Okay, so that's it. Run again. As you can see, this one is disabled now. Okay, so the next step is to add the event or register an event or specifically an action event. Okay, so when we click that one. Okay, so the first step is to implement the interface of an action listener. So implements action listener. Okay, so we will often use this every time we talk about action event. Okay, what are the action events? The moment you click a left mouse button, and then the moment you press an enter key, again, that is an event. So we will be using the action listener. And then take note to import that within java.out.event.action_listener. So by the way, the action listener is an interface, while JFRAME is a class. So there are a difference between an interface and class. But again, we will tackle that in our succeeding episode. Okay, but for now, just think of it as action listener is an interface. And then the main reason why we implement this, because the action listener has a method that we are going to override. When we say override, we are going to reuse the existing method of ActionListener Interface. So the implementation is in our program. Okay, so where are we going to put that one? So after, for example, of our constructor method, okay, actually you can just put it anywhere. Okay, so to override that, for example, we have public void actionPerformed. Okay, and then the argument is action event, and then the only object name that you can change is the E. Okay, so any letter that you want is okay. Okay, so this is the this is how we override the method. Okay, so we don't, when we override the method, we don't usually modify the method heading. Okay, so it's always like this. It's public and then void. The moment you cannot change it to any data type, for example. Okay, because that is prohibited every time we override the method. Okay, so for now, since we override the actionPerformed method of ActionListener Interface, so that's again the reason why we implement that, because all the events were going to happen inside of the actionPerformed. Meaning, when we click the on button, for example, after we register that for event handling, so the Java interpreter or JVM will go directly inside of this method to process the event. Okay, so that's the main reason why we have an actionPerformed here. Okay, so let me, and take note, the action event is again under the java.out.event. Okay, same with action listener. And action event is a class. So when we run this one, okay, we already implemented, for example, the action listener, and we override the method of action listener using actionPerform method. Once you click this one, as you can see, nothing is happening. Okay, why? Because we forget one more important thing, and that is to register this button for event handling. And how are we going to register this for event handling? Okay, there we go. Let's try to add some codes here. Okay, to register the on button for event handling, so you specify the object name on button dot add action listener. Okay, as simple as add action listener, and then this referring to itself. Okay, we use the keyword, the built-in keyword, this referring to this frame. So we are talking of on button. Okay, on no no as why okay button. I'm sorry, I just used okay button there. Okay, so it should be on button. Sorry. So we have on button. Change it to on button. On. Okay. That's it. So we have on button that add action listener this. Okay. So when we run again, okay, as you can see, when we click, it seems that nothing happens. But actually, since we already registered this OK button for event handling by using the uh, on button that add action listener this, the moment we click again, so the Java will go to the action perform method. So it seems that nothing happens. It's because this one is still empty. So meaning we are going now to process that event, okay, within this action perform method. Okay, so okay, but you have to keep in mind this important thing. If you have more than one GUI component to be registered for event handling. For example, once you click the OK button, okay, so this frame will have a new will resize, okay, to a new width, for example, and then once you click the off button, will go back to its original width. So there are two different um, functionality. Okay, so what I'm talking about is that when we are inside of the action performed, how do we know, how the Java know that we are referring to OK button, and also we are referring to the off button. Okay, so that is possible again to use the e object name here. So e dot get source. So we need to know, okay, which button to process. So if e.getSource is equal to on button, for example, so meaning when we click that button, so we will go inside of this if condition. Okay, and then the first thing that we need to do is we need to resize the width of the frame, and also we change the background color, for example. So let me just put some for loop here. So for example, for int I is 200. Why I started in 200? Because the default width is 200. And then for example, the next width that I want is up to 480. The width is 480, and then I will be using the set size method. So I just use the variable here, okay, so that it will have an animation, effect, okay, every time we loop. And then inside, okay, so that is the first for example code. And then if we want to for example change the background color, so I'll just use the get content pane here. But because the container that I declared is inside of the constructor method, but in the event that we put the container, this statement outside, for example, let me just put this one outside. Okay, once we put it there, so instead of using a get content pane here, so we can now use the C. Okay, so we have sample C that set background. So C okay, so that's it. To make it simpler, so if you want to run, let's try. Okay, let me just put it here. So when we click the OK button, so the background color changes to black, and then we now have the buttons in here. But as you can see, since we every time we use the flow layout, so it's a normal thing, okay, that by default the flow layout manager displays the buttons all in one line. if it's possible. But if we try to resize it, so okay, what have you noticed? The buttons are automatically uh, okay, adjust, okay, to its a different rows. Okay, next. Okay, next is if we want to change also the font or the background color of our other buttons. Okay, so let me just copy this code here. It's very simple. I just have created, we have a for loop here, and then we set all the buttons, the 0 to 9, to set enable true, and then also we change the foreground, the text color, to let's say blue, and then the background to white. Okay, and then we change also the font of that buttons. At the same time, for the other 6 buttons, so we have another for loop here. So same thing, we set the set it enabled true, and then also we have a foreground, we have background, and then the set font. Okay, and the on button, after we click the on button, so we need to make it set enabled false, and then the off button now, which is by default here inside of the constructor method, we set it to false, so it's about time to set it to true. Okay, so that's the logic behind it. Okay, so that's it. And then for the off button later, so I'll just show you first the sample run of this one. Okay, so when you click the OK button, so there you go. Okay, so that's it. So our next final step is to register and put some codes for the off button, so that every time we click the off button, this frame will go back to its original size. And how are we going to do that? Okay, just to save time, so we will be needing another getSource if a condition here. Okay, but before that, we will register the off button for event handling. So we will have addActionListener also here. Okay, and then for example, we have this, and then after that, we will have a code similar to this one also. Okay, but this time with a different the only difference is the set size. So we have, since we want to go back, okay, from the width of let's say 200 to 480, so we will go back now to from, let's say, 480 or 500, okay, to, let's say, 350 or something like that. So this is the only difference here. And then I just set the background color, instead of black, we use a gray here. And then also for the buttons, we set it to false again. Then the color is gray, same font. And then to the 6 remaining buttons also, we set the to enabled false. We have a foreground, background, and then set font. And we disable the off button while we enable the on button. Okay, that's what we add there. Then when you may run, okay, let me try to run. Okay, when you click the OK, that's it. And then when you click the off, we'll go back to its original size. Okay, so that's it. So if you want to register on the other buttons, as you can see, so the same thing that we're going to do. First, you need to add action listener for this one. Okay, so but we will do it in our next episode. Okay, what's important now in this episode is that you know now how to instantiate an object. So just to wrap up the discussion, so we have now the JButton if we want to instantiate or create it individually, so we can have the syntax. And then if you want to if you have a buttons having the same labels, let's say for example we're talking of number single digit for example here, so it's that is possible by using array of buttons. And then if you have labels for example, you can just do this. Okay, you can declare a string array labels, okay, for that particular buttons. And then to initialize the array elements, to have a button for example with the labels on it, so that is possible by using the buttons index is equal to new JButton, and then you can just disable that one, and then you can add now to the container. And again, since we are using the FlowLayout layout manager, the adding of buttons, the order is very important. So since we want to put this one first, all these buttons first before the OK and off, so that's the reason why we add these buttons first prior to this one. Okay, so that's it. And then when we are going to register an event for event handling, so what we need to do is just to implement ActionListener, and then don't forget to register an event by using the setEnabled this one, the addActionListener, this, and then you override the actionPerformed method. And then since if we have more than one buttons to register for event handling, okay, to process that one, so the getSource, the if condition with getSource here is very important. So but if you only have one button for example, or yes, one GUI component to be register for event handling, so the if condition with getSource is not required. Okay, this getSource is only required if we have more than one component registered for event handling. Okay, and then also what else, the rollover icon, that's it. And the simple animation, what we did is only we use for loop and then the set size method. So that's it. That's all the source code for this episode. And that's all for today. And if you like this video, please give us a thumbs up and consider subscribing. And as always, show your love through comments and favorites. God bless and thank you for watching.